It's my pleasure to introduce to you a biblical archaeologist and historian. This gentleman that we're honored to have with us today holds a Master of Arts degree in biblical archaeology and history. He's a member of the Archaeology Institute of America. In 1972, he was elected as a fellow to the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland, and in 1976, he was honored with an honorary doctorate degree in literature. And at this time, it's my privilege to introduce to you Mr. E. Raymond Capp. Mr. Capp, I want to tell you how much of a pleasure it is to meet with you and work with you on this project. We thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great.
Have a chance to show somebody else my work.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the stone and the significance of it?
That's when he had the dream of a ladder going to heaven, seen angels going up and down, and saw God at the top. And he woke in the morning. God made promises to him, covenant. He more or less was stunned by what he heard. In the morning, he poured oil on the stone and anointed it. And said, "This is now God's house." So, anointed stone, and of course, the book will tell you about that stone. He left it there for a while. But later on, he was told to go back and pick up the stone. And he carried it with him and put another stone up in its place. And many believe that stone is the one that's under the coronation chair in Westminster Abbey. And all the kings of Ireland have been crowned on that stone. The stone was later taken to Scotland by Fergus the Great, and all the kings of Scotland were crowned on that stone. And later it was taken by the English to England and put in Westminster Abbey. But the kings of England were all crowned on that. There's only one monarch who was not crowned on the stone. That's Queen Mary, Bloody Mary. The Roman Catholics, the church made her a private throne, but she's the only one that wasn't crowned on it.
I see. The stone is also known as by some as, I think, the stone. Some people pronounce it scone, but I think the correct pronunciation is Scone.
Scone.
Yes, the stone of Scone.
In the first half of the 6th century BC, at a city of ancient Egypt called Stephanis, a wedding took place. The bride was a princess of the royal house of Judah, and the groom was a soldier in the pay of Egypt, a prince of the Milesians, a people from the eastern Mediterranean. Men who were fighters, colonizers, traders, venturing by sea and land all over the then known world. If we ask ourselves what was the significance of this wedding all those years ago, we have to go forward in time, forward some 2,500 years to this, the Royal Abbey of Westminster in London, the Royal Peculiar, where stands the coronation chair and the coronation stone, on which for centuries have been crowned the sovereigns of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. But for this story, we also have to go back in time, back to a day recorded in the Old Testament, when Jacob, blessed as the heir of Isaac and fleeing from the land of Canaan, and from the anger of his elder brother Esau, stopped in the open to sleep, making use of a stone for his pillow. And there dreamed a dream, which filled him with awe, a dream in which he saw a stairway up to heaven, with angels ascending and descending. The dream of Jacob's ladder, and at the head, God himself. When he awoke in the morning, stunned by his experience, he anointed with oil the stone he had used as a headrest, and called the place Bethel, the house of God, so that the stone became the stone of Bethel, the stone of destiny. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. An anointed stone, the enduring witness to God's covenant with man. This stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. So Jacob went on his way from Bethel, from Canaan, northwards to his ancestral lands in Haran, to the home of his uncle Laban. There he settled, met and married 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, and raised a family of 12 sons and a daughter. But he still looked on Canaan as his real home, and at last he and his folk set out to return to Canaan. But on the way, an angel of God came to wrestle with him, and they fought, and Jacob won. And so God gave to him the name of Israel, one who prevailed with God. No longer Jacob, the supplanter, but Israel, a prince with God. So it was that as Jacob and his family came back to Canaan, he made his way to that same spot where he had dreamed of his God. And there, God reaffirmed his covenant with him. In thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. But if Canaan was to be his home for most of his life, Jacob was destined not to die there. Away to the southwest, across the Sinai desert, lay the land of Egypt. To this land, Jacob's favorite son Joseph had been sold by his jealous brothers to be a slave. The story of how Joseph rose to a position of power in the land, of how his foresight made Egypt a land of plenty, of how his brothers came to Egypt to buy grain at a time of famine, and of how Joseph urged them to bring their families and their now aged father Jacob to Egypt. This story is well known. So the children of Israel uprooted themselves from the land of Canaan and trekked across the desert to the land of Goshen in Egypt. And among their possessions, would not the sacred stone of Bethel have come too? There in the land of Goshen, Jacob, reunited with his favorite son, lived for a further 15 years. But now he was an old man, ill and nearing death. So, as the custom was, he made arrangements to bestow his family blessings on his sons. First he called Joseph, and to him, the son who had saved his people, Jacob gave the firstborn's portion and the keeping of the stone of Israel. And when he came to bless the sons of Joseph as his heirs, he crossed his arms, so that his right hand touched the younger, Ephraim. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. 2 centuries later, the situation of the Israelites in Egypt was very different. For a new dynasty of pharaohs had arisen who knew not Joseph and his people. Oppressed, at last they rose up under Moses and fled from Egypt across the waters of the Red Sea. This is the actual spot, hallowed in Bedouin legend, where the waters of the Red Sea parted to let them cross, but came together to engulf the pursuing Egyptians. So they came into the Sinai desert, and southwards towards Mount Sinai. There, where the coastal deserts rise towards the mountains, at Mount Sinai, Moses received from God the laws which were to give them a national identity under the one God, Jehovah. 2 tablets of engraved stone, henceforth preserved in that most holy of holies, the Ark of the Covenant. Wherever the people of Israel went, the Ark of the Covenant went with them. And the stone of Bethel, did not that go too? For was it not the first of the covenant witness stones? The covenant stone of Jacob, father of Israel, patriarch of the 12 tribes. 40 years the stone shared their wanderings in the desert, where the miracles of the manna from heaven and the water from the rock sustained them. St. Paul was to understand their meaning.